Asexual reproduction. The process of formation of new organisms by an organism of the same species without involvement of gametes is called asexual reproduction. As this reproduction does not involve the union of two different gametes, the new organism formed has exact genetic similarity with the reproducing organism. This is uniparental reproduction, and it occurs by mitotic cell division. Absence of genetic recombination is a drawback of this reproductive method, whereas fast process is its advantage. Come, let us do a more detailed study of this method of reproduction. First, we will study about asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms. Asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms. Binary fission. Come, let us perform an interesting activity to understand about this method of reproduction. Take a conical flask and collect water in it from a pond having stagnant water and aquatic plants. Add some wheat grains and aquatic plants in this collected water to make this medium nutrient-rich for bacterial growth. Keep this setup undisturbed for about 3 to 4 days to allow the wheat grains and aquatic plants to decompose. On the 4th day, take a clean glass slide and add a drop of this water on it. Carefully place a cover slip on this drop and observe the prepared slide first under the low power and then under the high power of a compound microscope. Can you tell what is observed under the microscope? Yes. We observe that some fully grown paramecia divide their body into two parts to form two similar paramecia. This method of asexual reproduction is called binary fission. Kindly note, strictly follow cleanliness during this entire activity. Wash your hands with soap after completion of the activity to prevent occurrence of any kind of infection. Prokaryotes like bacteria, protists like amoeba, paramecium, euglena, etc., and eukaryotic cell organelle like mitochondria and chloroplasts perform asexual reproduction by binary fission. In this process, the parent cell divides to form two similar daughter cells, which has the potential to grow and get to the same size as that of the parent cell. After binary fission, the parent cell does not exist anymore. This method of asexual reproduction occurs either by mitosis or by amitosis. Axis of fission or division is different in different protists. For example, amoeba divides in any plane due to lack of specific shape. Hence, it is called simple binary fission. Paramecium divides by transverse binary fission, whereas euglena divides by longitudinal binary fission. Binary fission is usually performed by living organisms during favorable conditions, that is, availability of abundant food material. Come, after learning about binary fission in detail, let us now study about one more type of fission in the unicellular organisms, and that is multiple fission. Multiple fission. Asexual reproduction by multiple fission is performed by amoeba and other similar protists. Amoeba stops the formation of pseudopodia and thereby its movements whenever there is lack of food or other type of adverse condition. It becomes rounded and forms protective covering around plasma membrane. Such encysted amoeba or any other protist is called as cyst. Many nuclei are formed by repeated nuclear divisions in the cyst. It is followed by cytoplasmic division and thus many amoebulae are formed. They remain encysted till there are adverse conditions. Cyst breaks open on arrival of favorable conditions and many amoebulae are released. After multiple fission, the parent cell does not exist. Come, let us now study about how some unicellular organisms reproduce by the method of budding. Budding. Have you ever seen any unicellular organism reproducing by the method of budding? Come, let us observe budding in an unicellular organism with the help of an interesting activity. Activity. Take 50 ml of lukewarm water in a conical flask. Add 5 grams of active dry yeast powder and 10 grams of sugar to this water and mix the mixture well. Now, keep the conical flask in a warm place for about 1 hour. After an hour, take a drop of the mixture on a clean glass slide. Cover this drop with a cover slip with the help of a mounting needle and observe this prepared slide under the compound microscope. What do you observe under the microscope? Small bud budding out of many yeast cells are seen. Thus, we can say that unicellular organisms like yeast reproduce by an asexual method called budding. Let us learn more about this method in brief. Asexual reproduction occurs by budding in yeast, a unicellular fungus. Yeast cell produces 2 daughter nuclei by mitotic division so as to reproduce by budding. This yeast cell is called as parent cell. A small bulge appears on the surface of parent cell. This bulge is actually a bud. One of the daughter nuclei enters this bud. After sufficient growth, the bud separates from the parent cell and starts to live independently as a daughter yeast cell. Organisms. Fragmentation. Fragmentation is a type of asexual reproduction that occurs in multicellular organisms. In this type of reproduction, the body of parent organism breaks up into many fragments and each fragment starts to live as an independent new organism. This type of reproduction occurs in algae like Spirogyra and sponges like Cycon. Whenever there is plenty of water and nutrients are available to Spirogyra, its filament grow up very fast and break up into many small filaments. Each fragment starts to live independently as a new Spirogyra fiber. If a body of Cycon breaks up accidentally into many fragments, each fragment develops into a new Cycon. Come, let us now study about one more method of asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms, that is, regeneration. Regeneration. You may know that the wall lizard breaks up and discards some of its tail in emergency. Discarded part is regenerated after a period. This is an example of limited regeneration. However, under certain situations, an animal, planaria, breaks up its body into 2 parts and thereafter each part regenerates remaining part of the body and thus 2 new planaria are formed. This is called regeneration. We have learnt now that some unicellular organisms reproduce by budding. But do you know that even some multicellular organisms also reproduce by this method? Come, let us study about budding in multicellular organisms. Budding. In case of Hydra, under favorable conditions at a specific part of its body, a swelling is formed by repeated divisions of regenerative cells of body wall. This swelling is called a bud. Bud grows up progressively and finally forms a small hydra. Dermal layers and digestive cavity of the budding hydra are in continuity with those of the parent hydra. Parent hydra supplies nutrition to the budding hydra. The budding hydra separates from the parent hydra and starts to lead an independent life when it grows up and becomes able to lead an independent life. Come, let us now move on to study about yet another method of asexual reproduction in multicellular organisms. Vegetative propagation. Reproduction in plants with the help of vegetative parts like root, stem, leaf, and bud is called vegetative reproduction. Vegetative propagation in potatoes is performed with the help of eyes present on the tuber, whereas in Bryophyllum it is performed with the help of buds present on the leaf margin. In case of plants like sugarcane and grasses, vegetative propagation occurs with the help of buds present on the nodes. Plants like carrot and radish perform vegetative propagation with the help of roots. Come, let us now learn about one more method of asexual reproduction in living organisms. Spore formation. You might have seen growth of fungus on a stale bread or bhakri. Do you know how this fungus exactly looks? Come, let us perform an activity to observe such fungal growth. Activity. Take a piece of moist bread or bhakri and keep it in a humid place for about 3 days. What do you observe after 3 days? We observe cottony mass of fungus growing on the food item. Come, let us observe this cottony mass under the compound microscope. Fungi like mucor have fibrous body. They have sporangia. Once the spores are formed, sporangia burst and the spores are released. Spores germinate in moist and warm place and new fungal colony is formed. After studying about asexual reproduction in living organisms in detail, let us now proceed to study about sexual in organisms. Sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction always occurs with the help of two germ cells. Female gamete and male gamete are those two germ cells. Two main processes occur in the sexual reproduction: gamete formation and fertilization. Gamete formation. Gametes are formed by the process of meiosis. In meiosis, chromosome number is reduced to half, hence, haploid gametes are formed. Fertilization. A diploid zygote is formed in this process by union of haploid male and female gametes. This zygote then undergoes mitotic division and an embryo is formed. The embryo develops further to form a new individual. Two-parent, that is, male parent and female parent are involved in this type of reproduction. Fusion of male gamete of male parent and female gamete of female parent occurs in this type of reproduction. Due to this, the new individual formed always has the recombined genes of both the parents. Hence, the new individual shows similarities with the parent for some characters and has some characters different than both parents. Diversity in living organisms occurs due to genetic variation. Genetic variations help the organisms to adjust with the changing environment and thereby help them to maintain their existence. Due to this, plants and animals can save themselves from being extinct. Come, let us conduct an interesting Think a Little section to check your brain power. Think a little. 1. What would have happened if the male and female gametes had been diploid? If the male and female gametes have been diploid, then the zygote formed after fertilization would have been tetraploid. 2. What would have happened if any of the cells in nature had not been divided by meiosis? If any of the cells in nature had not been divided by meiosis, then sexual reproduction would not have taken place, as the process of meiosis is very essential for gamete formation. After having an overall idea of what is meant by sexual reproduction, now we will learn about sexual reproduction in plants, and then we will move on to study about sexual reproduction in human beings. Sexual reproduction in plants. Flower is a structural unit of sexual reproduction in plants. It consists of 4 floral whorls: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium, arranged in a sequence from outside to inside. Androecium and gynoecium are called essential whorls because they perform the function of reproduction, whereas calyx and corolla are called accessory whorls because they are responsible for protection of the inner whorls. Members of calyx are called sepals, and they are generally green-colored. Members of corolla are called petals, and they are variously colored. Androecium is a male whorl and is made up of stamens. Gynoecium is a female whorl and is made up of carpels. A flower is called bisexual if both the whorls, that is androecium and gynoecium, are present in the same flower. Hibiscus is an example of bisexual flower. A flower is called unisexual if any one of the essential whorls is present in the flower. If only androecium is present, then it is a male flower, and if only gynoecium is present, then the flower is female flower. Unisexual flowers are found in papaya plant. Many flowers have a stalk for support called the pedicel, and such flowers are called pedicellate, whereas flower without stalk is called sessile. Each stamen has a filament and an anther at the terminal end of the filament. 4 compartments called locules are present in the anther. Pollen grains are formed by meiosis in the locules. Anther breaks open at appropriate time and pollen grains come out. Carpels of the gynoecium may be separated or united. Ovary is present at the basal end of each carpel. A hollow style comes from the ovary. Stigma is present at the tip of the style. Ovary contains 1 or more ovules. Embryo sac is formed in each ovule by meiosis. Each embryo sac consists of a haploid egg cell and 2 haploid polar nuclei. Pollen grains from anther are transferred to the stigma. This is called pollination. Pollination occurs with the help of abiotic agents like wind and water, and biotic agents like insects and other animals. Come, let us watch how some of these agents help in pollination. Stigma becomes sticky during pollination. Pollens germinate when they fall upon sticky stigma, and a long pollen tube and 2 male gametes are formed. The pollen tube carries male gametes. pollen tube reach the embryo sac via the style. The tip of the pollen tube bursts and two male gametes are released in the embryo sac. One male gamete unites with the haploid egg cell to form a diploid zygote. This is fertilization. Second male gamete unites with the two haploid polar nuclei and thus triploid endosperm is formed. As two male gametes participate in this process, it is called double fertilization. Do you know? When pollination includes only one flower or two flowers born on the same plant, then it is called self-pollination. On the other hand, when pollination includes flowers of two different plants of the same species, then it is called cross-pollination. With the help of biotechnology, it has become possible to produce plant varieties which has high yielding capacity and can withstand the environmental stresses. Scientists discover such varieties by practicing the method of cross-pollination with the help of a brush. After the process of double fertilization, the ovule develops into seed and the ovary develops into fruit. The seeds fall upon the ground when the fruit breaks open and they germinate in the soil under favorable conditions. Zygote develops by utilizing food stores in endosperm of the seed and thus a new plantlet is formed. This is called seed germination. Come, let us understand about this process with the help of a small activity. Activity. Take a glass bowl and add some garden soil in it. Sow some pulse grains in the soil in such a way that the seeds can be easily observed through the glass. Water it every day for about a week. Can you tell what changes are observed in the seeds during the entire week? After fertilization, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo within the ovule. The ovule develops into a seed. The seed contains the future plant, that is the embryo. When the sowed seeds are observed on the second day, we see that the seeds have absorbed water and have become turgid, which marks the beginning of the process of germination. Due to the pressure created, the outer seed coat has also ruptured. The radicle or the future root is seen out of the seed. On the same axis of the radicle, on the upper side, swollen part of the plumule, which is the future shoot, is also observed. On the seventh day, we can see that seeds have developed into seedlings. This marks the end of the process of germination. Come, after doing a detailed study of sexual reproduction in plants, let us now move on to study about sexual reproduction in human beings. Sexual reproduction in human beings. Do you remember? In the previous grade, we have studied that different hormones like follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, oxytocin, prolactin control the functioning of human reproductive system. Hormones like estrogen, testosterone, follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone are responsible for changes occurring in the human body during the onset of sexual activity. You might have read in the newspaper that the government of India has enacted a law to fix the minimum age of marriage to 18 in girls and 21 in boys. Can you tell what according to you will be the reason for the formulation of this law? First of all, this law helped to a very wide extent to eradicate social customs like child marriage in India, which violates girl rights to health, education, and opportunity. Secondly, when the girl reaches the age of 18 and the boy reaches the age of 21, their bodies are physically and mentally matured enough to get into the sacred bond of marriage. We have studied in the chapter of heredity and variation last year that men have XY sex chromosomes and women have XX sex chromosomes. Reproductive system with specific organs develop in the body of men and women due to these sex chromosomes only. X chromosome is present in the men and women, whereas Y chromosome is present in men only. Come, this year let us do a detailed study of the structure and function of human reproductive system. Male reproductive system of humans. Male reproductive system of humans consists of testes, various ducts and glands. Testes are present in the scrotum outside the abdominal cavity. Testes contain numerous seminiferous tubules. Germinal epithelium cells present in the tubules divide by meiosis to produce sperms. These sperms are sent forward through various tubules. Sequence of these tubules is rete testis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, and urinogenital duct. As the sperms are pushed forward from one duct to the next, they become mature and are able to fertilize the ovum. Seminal vesicles secrete their secretions in ejaculatory ducts, whereas Cowper's gland secrete their secretion in urinogenital duct. Semen is formed of sperms and secretions of all these glands. Semen is ejaculated out through the penis. All the organs of male reproductive system are paired except the urinogenital duct and penis. After studying about male reproductive system of humans, come, let us find out some surprising facts about this system. 1. Length of each epididymis is about 6 meters. 2. Length of each sperm is about 60 micrometers. 3. Such a small sperm has to cross a distance of approximately 6.5 meters while passing out of male reproductive system. 4. The sperm needs large amount of energy. For this purpose, fructose is present in the semen. Come, let us now proceed to study about female reproductive system of humans. Female reproductive system of humans. All organs of female reproductive system are in the abdominal cavity. It includes a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts, single uterus, and a vagina. Generally, every month an ovum is released in the abdominal cavity alternately from each ovary. The free end of the oviduct is funnel-like. An opening is present at the center of it. Oocyte enters the oviduct through this opening. Cilia are present on the inner surface of the oviduct. These cilia push the oocyte towards the uterus. We have studied now that the gamete formation and fertilization are the two main processes that occur in sexual reproduction. Come, let us see how these processes take place in human beings. Gamete formation. Both gametes, that is, sperm and ovum, are formed by meiosis. Sperms are produced in testes of men from beginning of maturation, that is puberty, till death. However, in case of women, at the time of birth, there are 2 to 4 million immature oocytes in the ovary of the female fetus. An oocyte matures and is released from the ovary every month from the beginning of the maturity up to the age of menopause, which is approximately 45 years. Wait a minute. Did you find a new word in the last sentence? Menopause. Do you know what does it mean? Menopause is the stoppage of functioning of female reproductive system. At the age of 45 to 50 years, secretion of hormones controlling the functions of female reproductive system either stops or becomes irregular. This causes the menopause. From the age of puberty, that is 10 to 17 years, up to the age of menopause, that is from 45 to 50 years, an ovum is released every month from the ovary. Thus, out of 2 to 4 million ova, approximately only 400 oocytes are released up to the age of menopause. Remaining oocytes undergo degeneration. Do you know? Oocytes released from ovaries during the last few months nearing the age of menopause are 45 to 50 years old. Their ability of division has been diminished till now. Due to this, they cannot complete meiotic division properly. If such oocytes are fertilized, the newborns produced from them may be with some abnormalities like Down syndrome. Come, let us now study about the second important process in sexual reproduction in human beings, that is, fertilization. Fertilization. Formation of zygote by union of sperm and ovum is called fertilization. Fertilization is internal in humans. Semen is ejaculated in vagina during copulation. Sperms in the number of few millions start their journey by the route of vagina, uterus, oviduct. One of those few million sperms fertilize the only ovum present in the oviduct. The chromosome number in germ cells producing the gametes are diploid, that is, 2n. It includes 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes. These germ cells divide by meiosis. Due to this, gamete contains only haploid, that is n number of chromosomes, that is 22 plus X or 22 plus Y. Two types of sperms are produced, that is 22 plus X or 22 plus Y, whereas oocytes produced are only of one type, which is 22 plus X. Both the sperms and oocytes are produced by meiosis. In case of sperms, the process of meiotic division is completed before the sperms leave the male reproductive system. However, in case of oocytes, the process of meiotic division completes after ovulation during the fertilization in oviduct. Come, let us now see how the zygote formed develops and a new life is born. Development and birth. The zygote formed after fertilization in the oviduct undergoes repeated meiotic divisions an embryo is formed. Meanwhile, it is pushed towards the uterus. Once it reaches the uterus, it is implanted and further development occurs after implantation. An organ called placenta is formed for the supply of food material during the growth in uterus. Embryonic development is completed approximately within 9 months after the fertilization. Once the fetal development is completed, the birth hormone called oxytocin is released from the pituitary gland of the mother. Under the effect of this hormone, the uterus or the womb of the mother starts to contract, and thereby the birth process called parturition is facilitated, and finally a new life is born. Don't you think this entire process of giving birth to a new life is magical, and it is like an honor for a woman? But do you know how the body of a woman is prepared for this phase? The menstrual cycle in women brings about series of changes in the body of a woman to prepare for a possible pregnancy. Come, let us do a brief study of this cycle. Menstrual cycle. Female reproductive system undergoes some changes at puberty, and those changes repeat at the interval of every 28 to 30 days. These repetitive changes are called menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is a natural process controlled by 4 hormones. These 4 hormones are follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, estrogen, and progesterone. One of the several follicles in the ovary starts to develop along with the oocyte present in it under the effect of follicle-stimulating hormone. This developing follicle secretes estrogen. Endometrium of the uterus starts to develop during the first cycle or regenerate during subsequent cycles under the effect of estrogen. Meanwhile, developing follicle completes its development. It bursts under the effect of luteinizing hormone and oocyte is released. This is called ovulation. Remaining tissue of the burst follicle forms the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum starts to secrete progesterone. Endometrial glands secrete their secretion under the effect of progesterone. Such endometrium is ready for implantation of embryo. If oocyte is not fertilized within 24 hours, corpus luteum becomes inactive and transforms into corpus albicans. Due to this, secretion of estrogen and progesterone stops completely. Endometrium starts to degenerate in the absence of these 2 hormones. Tissues of degenerating endometrium and fertilized ovum are discarded out through vagina. This is accompanied with continuous bleeding. Bleeding continues approximately for 5 days. This is called menstruation. Unless the oocyte is fertilized and embryo is implanted, this process is repeated every month. If the embryo is implanted, repetition of this cycle is temporarily stopped till the parturition and thereafter period of breastfeeding. Menstrual cycle is a natural process and the woman experiences severe pains during this period. Weakness is felt due to heavy bleeding. There is higher possibility of infections too during this period. Due to all such reasons, there is need of rest along with special personal hygiene. After doing a detailed study of both male and female reproductive system of humans, come, let us peep into the advances happening in the field of science and technology in context to reproduction and the complications related to it.